I had a case recently, probably my most recent court case, that was meth. We had a mom that was using meth, that was using in the home in front of the kids. And how that case came to us is actually the report came from the Drug Task Force. They had actually done a raid on the home. And sometimes that's how we get notified of these things. They might be following a family, and then they get enough to get a warrant to go in, and then they execute a warrant. So the Drug Task Force executed their warrant. They found substantial amounts of meth. I actually believe that mother's boyfriend was they were not only using, but he was dealing. And so there was a substantial amount of drugs in a closet, totally accessible to kids. In going forward and interviewing the children, they disclosed to me, witnessing in their age appropriate ways, because I had a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old. So when I was assigned the case, the kids had already been placed in out-of-home placement. So if I remember correctly, this occurred over a weekend, which we don't work on the weekends, so our crisis unit handles or fills in as needed for like placements and things like that. So when I went to interview the kids, they were already in a foster home. So I go out and I interview the kids one-on-one, and the 6-year-old, how you get at a 6-year-old sense of drug use, for instance. Does anybody smoke in the home? Yep. What do they smoke? They smoke cigarettes. Okay, do you ever see anybody else smoke anything besides cigarettes? Yeah, there's kind of this bubble-looking thing that mom smokes out of, that type of dialogue. But in talking to them, both extremely aware of what's going on. While I'm sure the parent would tell me, oh no, we were behind a closed door, or they didn't know what was going on. Also, the Drug Task Force report was, the way that they got their information to get enough to go for the warrant was people had actually been witnessed openly smoking meth outside of the home that people were actually seeing. So if you're telling me you're outside smoking, that your children have no awareness of what's happening. So besides meth, there was a lot of domestic violence that the kids were witnessing also. Mom was arrested. The boyfriend actually went to jail for the drug charges. Took responsibility for the drugs. So mom was actually charged with child endangerment and taken into custody. So I interview the kids in this situation. So you've got kids on a hold, so you're automatically bringing in court. So court's role is, when children first go into placement, they go on a 72-hour hold. That gives me, the worker, 72 hours, usually less than that by the time I'm getting it, to determine if the kids are safe to go home immediately. And if not, then we need to present back at court at the end of that 72 hours to say, my recommendation is the kids stay in placement, and that we continue and we file a petition to make sure the kids are going to be safe. So in this case, obviously, I had grave concerns about what's been going on in that home and what the kids had been exposed to. So I recommended they stay in out-of-home placement. Mom in this situation was actually very cooperative and very open and actually very honest. She was pretty defeated. I mean, you're getting somebody, she would have had a hard time probably trying to minimize to me at that point, given the fact of how this all had played out. The Drug Task Force did a raid, things were found, but she was at a place, she has actually been using, she admitted to me that she's been using meth on and off for the past 8 years. And while she had a very small, brief period of sobriety, for the most part, has been using during that time. And she was ready for help. At least that's what she was presenting me with. So how much further you can go with someone who's ready, who's, who's willing to be honest, who what you're dealing with. And I tell people that, I say, I can't help you if I don't know what we're dealing with. So